Hey everybody. All right, so here we are finishing day number one of the training account, the simulator attempt that I spoke of in previous videos. And I had a terrible day this morning, which is great. I sound happy, it might sound strange, but the goal here is to have problems and to demonstrate how to fight through them. And today I had a lot of problems right away. Now, the first thing I want to say about this recap is that it's going to be a lot less detailed than future ones will be. I'm not going to be displaying any of my Excel trackers or any of my processes of how I'm logging these trades right away. The reason being that I found a couple of mistakes or just anomalies, we'll say, in my trackers, and so I'm going to need a couple of days to clear that up. Now, as I mentioned in the My Setup video, I'm not really working with an ideal situation here. And one of the worst things that I have going for me right now, which I am definitely going to have to change, is my internet speed. I'm currently downloading at something like 1.4 megabytes per second, which in this day and age is certainly a joke. And today that hurt me pretty badly on my very first trade of the day on PSTV. You can see the chart here is open, and as I'm writing this around 2:30 in the afternoon, I mean, this thing is getting slaughtered. This is just next level horrible situation on this stock. But all this to say that I had internet problems while I was in this trade, and in my opinion, that's actually a good thing. Going back a few years, or perhaps just one, the worst trade I ever took in my trading career was, or sorry, the worst result I ever got in my trading career was the result of an internet failure. And so this is a great representation of something or some of the things that can go wrong that you don't necessarily have control over. Now, granted, I could have just had better internet and avoided this, but I didn't. And I'm not going to reverse this trade. In this training account, I do have the opportunity of just resetting my buying power and equity using this window right here. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to roll with this and just play off of it as if something horrible happened that's outside of my control, because the whole point of this exercise is to be able to bounce back, to learn from mistakes, to be able to make deal with awful situations and examine what it's really like when you're first starting out as a trader. So as you can see here on the right hand side in my trades window, I got into PSTV at 1560, looking for a break of hold on, let me back it up a little, of this level right here. I wanted to see a breakout above this candle, and the place I got in was on this 1 minute candle right here. And as I saw this, it was descending volume coming out of the open. It got hit pretty hard out of the open. However, this is a supremely low float stock. It's only got 400,000 shares in circulation. And, with it added to the daily chart, as you can see in the bottom right corner here, there were a number of factors working for this stock. And I'm not going to go too deeply into those on this trade. The point here is that I was looking for an anticipatory entry at 1560, looking to add above the pre-market highs if it so got there. It didn't end up getting there, and while it didn't get there, I lost, or I had choppy internet connections. I didn't lose it entirely, but it was fading in and out, and I ended up having to restart everything. I closed the broker, closed everything, restarted my computer, the whole bit. And in that time, it took about 6 minutes to get all that done. In that time, the stock got slaughtered. It fell back, got flushed all the way back down to 14 or 1350 rather. And what I did to try and save this trade was I averaged down, which is not something I would normally do. But I did it in this case just as a way to try and deal with this situation, because I was already down very huge on this stock. And so I ended up adding 25 shares at 14.12, about 7 minutes after my initial entry. And long story short on this stock, I made a second mistake. Well, the first wasn't really a mistake. It was just a loss of internet connection. And I tried to deal with it by taking the high risk add-on that I just talked about right here. That brought my average down to about 1510. And my mistake on this, it was a mistake on the day, not necessarily on the trade. I took two trades simultaneously, and this is just maybe a reflection of what I've been doing over the past couple days to prepare for this simulation. I've been playing with a little bit higher equity, and because of that, I've been able to multitask and take several trades. And as a result of doing that, I actually forgot that I still had a trade open on PSTV when I got into my second trade on AVDL. So long story short on this, on PSTV, was that I forgot about it while I was in AVDL, and then just looked at my unrealized, all of a sudden noticed, oh my God, I'm down $200 on this stock. What the hell is going on? And that's when I just cut it loose. I didn't even really think about it much. You can see here I got rid of half the position at 12.31. At that time, there was a little bit of a bounce happening. Let's show you that bounce. Let's see, here's where it got slaughtered, and then it came back up a little bit, and I was trying to just once again try to make the best out of a bad situation, taking half off the table at 12.31, hoping for a move back up to 13. I didn't get it quickly enough, and at the same time, I wanted equity. I had buying power that I wasn't, or sorry, I was looking for buying power to add further on AVDL, and my buy orders got rejected because I didn't have the buying power. And that's when I realized I was still in the trade on PSTV. So needing that buying power on AVDL, I decided to just cut the rest loose at 12.10, take a huge loss of $200, which for my account equity, that's a 10% equity loss on the day. That's huge. But at the same time, my trade on AVDL was going very well, and I wanted to be able to add into it if it continued running. Now, my first trade on AVDL was a little bit sort of badly, not necessarily badly timed, but I did jump into this as it was running. I didn't really wait for a substantial pullback because I wasn't 100% convinced that a substantial pullback would ever happen. I saw this stock as traders just being bored with the day and unimpressed with the number of opportunities. And so I was already looking at this pre-market as is outlined on this chart here. I was looking for the break of 452. That's when I first started seeing it. It made a bit of a flat top here pre-market, and I thought, okay, even though it had retraced its big spike here pre-market, I thought there's a good chance that with the news that this thing had out, that it could become the stock. And surely enough, after basing out here in the low $4, around 420 or 425, it did start running, and I missed the initial run. So the place I initially got in was on this, right here, 45, yeah, on this high of day break. I took a bit of a sketchy entry. That's why I only started with 250 shares. Normally at this price range, my first entry would be 500 or so. But especially given, just the way that I had lost my internet earlier, I just recouped my internet and I didn't really want to take too much risk on right away. So I just took a starter of 250 shares, hoping that we would have a proper pullback, at which point I could add into the secondary move. And that's exactly what happened. You can see the proper pullback finally took place here. And coming out of that pullback, I added another 125 shares right here at 49. And as it broke $5, I took another 125 shares to get a total position of 500 shares. And my plan on this, my target was about 525. That's where I thought that this thing would end up having trouble. I didn't really think it was going to go all the way up to its pre-market high. It did end up doing that. But in any case, I thought the pivot that I have marked out here on the daily chart at whatever it was there, 528, I thought that was probably going to cause enough resistance that added to the pre-market high, added to the size of the float, the news, the amount that it was already up, the lack of former runners in the name. It wasn't exactly a huge runner. I just thought that the profit target on this was probably not going to be that high. I was never thinking about halts or anything like that. I was basically just looking to scalp 30 or 40 cents, and I was taking a fairly small amount of risk to do it. Now, this is where I made a technical mistake in the day, which my second pretty bad mistake of the day. You can see here I have a partial fill order. What this order was sell half at 509. The reason I wanted to sell half at 509 was there was a bit of problem on this run up. You can see here it hit 510 and then started coming back down, and I wasn't all that convinced that it was going to push through that level. And so with my average cost in the low 90s, I believe, I decided to take half off the table and then adjust my stop to break even. Just to, I didn't want to make the day any more red than it was. This was a trade where I expected it to go well, but if it didn't, I certainly didn't want to add to my problems that I had caused for myself on PSTV. So I had this order hanging out, and once again, this sloppiness, the rustiness of my inactive summer, I guess just like my brain's not into it yet. And I had an order hanging out at 5:09, and I forgot to cancel it. And I only realized halfway through the fill that I still had it up. So these 155 shares got filled, and I noticed it, partway through. I canceled the order after the 155 shares had gone through because there was a new wave of momentum coming in, as you can see on this candle here. And as opposed to, letting this order fill, I decided to actually add, as you can see on this order here, where I clicked add half my remaining position, which was 172 shares at 513. Because at this point I had thought, okay, we're breaking through the big resistance at 510. Well, that might actually give us the move all the way back up to the pre-market high. And so as it did push through that 510 level, it pushed through pretty quickly. And I took half off the table here at 525, selling 258 shares. And then got a great fill on the last piece on this candle here as it pushed up to 37. As it hit 37, there was another chunk of sellers, just like there were at 510. But because the 537 level coincided with both the pre-market high and the daily resistance, I decided, nope, this is not going higher. And if it does, so be it, but I'm not going to stick around for it. I saw this as a probable reversal. And if it wasn't going to be a reversal, then I thought that there was probably going to be a pullback all the way back to $5. And I didn't want to stick around for that. So I just took the whole position off the table at 532 and got out. And I got a great fill on that. I'm super happy. As soon as the order got filled, I was ecstatic to look over and see that I had got filled at 532, because I wasn't necessarily looking at my order. I'm just looking squarely at the level 2 to see what's going on there and the tape, and just trying to read those two and see what I want to do. And it turns out the order that I put in was 532, which is great, and it got filled. So, great fill on that. Super happy. And as a result of this trade, I ended up recouping almost 100% of my loss on PSTV, which was an unexpected result. My price or my profit target on this was not as high as what I eventually got. I got almost 3.5 to 1 risk reward ratio on this, which is great. I mean, we regularly aim for 2 to 1, and to get 3.5 to 1 on what was effectively a pretty dead day, where my primary stock that I was watching, which was PSTV, failed miserably. So to end up with a profit result like that was great. And after this trade, I had brought myself to being down only about only about $39 on the day, which, coming off of, my first trade being a disastrous $225 loss, I was really happy to see I'm only in the red $40. Now, my next trade on AVDL was also my last one of the day. The risk amount that I was taking here, my stop was going to be 497, illustrated by this line here on the 1-minute chart. And what I was looking for was a break over this kind of little flat top. I thought if this level broke, where there was a decent amount of sellers on the level 2, I thought if we broke that, that could be the trigger to push back through high of day and start another run. Now, my entry on this was a little bit one of anticipation, and once again, I only took 250 shares, as you can see here, at 516. That was on this candle right here when we broke through that level. I wasn't really super confident on this, and what I was planning in my head was to only add 125 shares. I was just going to max out the position at probably 375 shares. And even then, my add-on wasn't going to happen until we broke high of day, because I wanted to see the confirmation. I wanted to see substantial volume. You can see on the 1-minute chart, the volume was kind of getting a little bit choppy, and it didn't scream confidence. So I really wanted to see confirmation before I got really aggressive on this, and we never got it. The only thing I really liked is that when it came back down here, it bounced pretty quickly off a big buyer that was sitting at 496. You can see it double bottomed here, initially at 497 and then again at 497. And I took that as a pretty good sign. I thought, okay, if we can double bottom and get some volume coming into the upside, well, this could be enough to push this thing, through high of day and possibly all the way up to maybe $6. That didn't end up happening, however. I broke back down, broke back down a few minutes later, as you can see here. And as soon as it cut through that buyer at 496, that's when I chunked out the whole position at 491. Now I'm just going to close this video out by saying that this day's result is sort of a manifestation of my need to create problems for myself in the simulator. Today I actually didn't do any of this on purpose, but I feel sometimes as if there's a little voice in the back of my head saying, make mistakes on purpose. Like let's simulate awful stuff so that we can learn from it. And even though that wasn't the case today, these were all legitimate mistakes. I mean, my internet being lost was not something I planned. What was it? Failing to realize that I still had an order on AVDL, that was not planned either. None of this was planned. But even though I ran into these problems, I did trade very sloppily, in my opinion. The only good trade I made was the only winner I had. This was the first one on AVDL. I think I executed very well in that trade, and I love my add-ons. I love my exits. I like everything about that trade. But I think the second one may have been a little bit too much. I think trying to take an anticipatory entry on a high of day breakout on a pretty high float stock, it's 27 million share float stock, was a little bit too ambitious, especially given the lack of momentum in the market lately. There haven't been huge runners. And so I think overall, if I were to rate this day, I think I did very poorly. I mean, my accuracy was only 33%, but even if it had been higher, even if I had, let's say, taken 5 trades and been a green on 4 of them, if they happened the way these did, I wouldn't be very satisfied with myself. And so the takeaway from this for me is that this is great. We're starting red here. This is a perfect demonstration of what happens when you have a red day. Like, this is my first day in this account, and I'm going to lose over 5% of my account equity right away. And so that's realistic. I think a new trader is going to have these problems. It might not be for the same reasons. It's probably going to be because you're nervous. I'm not nervous, but I am rusty. The last trade that I took, technically I traded a bit just to get in the flow last week. But before that, I mean, my last trade in the market was in early June or something like that. So I've spent the entire summer inactive. And I think that inactivity is showing itself in spades today, because this was the first day where I really tried to apply myself, and I failed miserably in a couple of departments. And I think that's great. And I'm hoping very much that although, my results will change and we will get green from here, I'm really hoping that viewers will be able to, profit from this experience, not necessarily monetarily, but just in seeing some of the things that can go wrong and watching how I deal with it and what I'm going to be looking for tomorrow at the open.